folks come on in. If you come up under the tent, please. Please come forward. Yes, I do. They're down by the street there. I'll get them for you in just a minute. Yes, I'll help you, ma'am. Right here. Have a seat. I've got a chair for you.
Oh, and Graham and Joe. Jody's? Yeah, Jody. Yeah, 2 more grandchildren.
Anyone wants to take a chair and move back if anyone needs a seat?
Oh, save one for Dad.
Yeah, I was going to say for you.
Okay, 12 one for him.
Anyone else need to have a seat? Any of the ladies and or part of the family?
Anyone wants to take a chair?
Come have a seat, ladies.
You may. We gather together today as a dear family and friends of Thelma Oif Golger. We mourn her loss, but also celebrate the rich life she led. Can you hear me in the back? Death has taken our beloved Toby. Friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For her love that united us in life, from which death cannot sever. For her companionship which we shared along life's path, which still continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and her mind, which brought us joy and happiness, and now become a precious heritage of the Spirit. For all these and more, God, we give you our praise. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'nai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we're well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us. Yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave. And there is strength in faith. With Job we say, Adonai natan, God you have given. You gave us a loved one who will not be forgotten. For all was good and enduring in her life. We offer the deepest thanks of our hearts. Proverbs 31. Esher chayil mi yimsa, rechok mipni mikra. A woman of valor who can find, she's more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and so he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm, all the days of his life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns on into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hands to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her family rise up and bless her. They sing her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. She's achieved success, who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and the love of little children, who has filled her niche and accomplished her task, who has left the world better than she found it, whether by an improved copy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who has never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given the best she had, whose life was inspiration, whose memory benediction. Adonai roi lo exar, bina desha yar bitzeni, mamei menachok yanachaleni. If you're familiar with the words of the 23rd Psalm, you may join me now. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters, and restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord. Amen. The Baal Shem Tov, the Hasidic Rebbe, once observed that there are 3 ways to mourn. The first is with tears, the second is with silence, and the third is with song. We mourn someone truly beloved, we experience all 3. Tears at first, then silence as our grief settles more deeply. And finally, song as we're able to celebrate the memories we hold deep in our hearts. So today may be a time for tears as we say our final goodbyes to Toby. We'll each remember Toby in our own way. Barbara and Ronald, Elisa and Rick, Ken and Marilyn, Terry and Jason. You will all remember Toby as your beloved mother. Simon, Charlotte, Graham, Jonathan and Abby, Jody and Gary, Shayna and David, Alana and Sasha, Benji, Sam, Aaron and Max. You will all remember Toby as your devoted grandma, and she was an adoring great-grandmother to Zoe, Shiri, Frida, Ari, Maya, and Ellie. Toby was a dear stepmother and grandmother to Gail, Philip and Cynthia, Rochelle, Nathan, Erin, Esty, and Noah. Throughout her life, Toby was a caring sister and sister-in-law to Miriam and Albert, and of blessed memory, Miriam and Paul, Gloria, Buddy, and Rhoda. Toby was born on January 2nd, 1926 to Anna and Bert Samuel Heller. Her younger sister Miriam was born 7 years later. They grew up in the Glenville area. Toby was always very bright and inquisitive, and from elementary school through high school, she was selected to participate in the Major Work Program for gifted students in the Cleveland Public Schools. Toby graduated from Glenville High School in 1944 and then Ohio State University in 1948 with a degree in psychology. During the next year, Toby met Sanford Oif on the steps of Western Reserve University Library. Soon they married. Barbara was born in 1952, then Elisa in 54, Ken in 58, and finally Terry in 63. They all have happy memories of fun family times together. Toby was fiercely family-oriented. She was devoted to her children and taking care of her home. Every Friday night she lit candles and made a beautiful Shabbat dinner. She taught her children about the fundamentals of Judaism through her actions. Toby and Sanford had great creative collaboration. He was an architect and she was crafty, enjoyed sewing and knitting. Toby respected Sanford's creativity and loved being on the design team as they built houses and created unique projects together, such as drapes made of hand-stamped fabric and a Japanese screen made with fall leaves they collected outdoors. Their projects were unique and practical. Toby also enjoyed enameling and drawing classes. She liked to go to art museums and art shows. Toby and Sanford sold jewelry he made at a craft fair together. They were a great team and shared 34 wonderful years together until Sanford's death in 1983. Then Toby was working as a receptionist at the JCC when an old acquaintance walked in, David Golger. Toby had always taken her kids to his shoe store to get new shoes for school each year. He too had been widowed young, and they began to date. They were married in 1988 and shared 33 happy years until David's death less than 2 months ago. They enjoyed traveling and attending elder hostels together. Toby worked for many years as a coordinator for volunteers for the Tri-City Consortium on Aging. Toby organized volunteers for their flu vaccine clinics, Meals on Wheels, and planned big volunteer lunches. Toby worked there until she was 81 and was honored for being such a long-standing employee. Toby had a wonderful, inquiring mind. She loved to do her own research on the internet, looking up things from finance to nutrition. Toby's son-in-law, Jason, gave her a physician's desk reference. She loved to look up any medical questions in that huge volume. Toby was interested in science. When Toby lost her vision, she would call Terry to look things up for her on Google. Toby's grandson Jonathan remembers when he was young. If he asked Grandma Toby a question, she would say, "Jonathan, let's go look at the World Book." She taught him how to do a little research. Toby adored all her grandchildren. When they spoke to her, she listened to every word. She always remembered what all 11 of the grandchildren were up to. And her great-grandchildren brought her such joy. She loved holding them and playing with them. You told me how important Jewish holidays were to Toby. Perhaps it is very fitting that she died at the very end of the first day of Rosh Hashanah. She wanted to be with you for one more holiday. Perhaps she wanted all of you to be together. It is believed that righteous souls return to God on these, my holy days. So today may be a time for tears. We are saddened by the loss of Toby, but we learned so much from her, especially how to care for one another. Let your tears serve to strengthen and uphold you as a family. Tomorrow there'll be fewer tears, more silence. As the Baal Shem Tov noted, it will be a time for pondering, a time for contemplation. Tov will become a greater part of our characters and our very beings as we integrate the memories and the values she taught us into our own selves. But finally, will come a time for song. The time will come we can celebrate Toby and recall all that we learned from her and how she touched each of our lives. May she rest in peace. Zecher Siracha Livracha. May the memory of Toby Oif Golger be a blessing. Amen. And now I'd like to invite all of Toby's children, Barbara, Lisa, Ken, and Terry, to share some personal thoughts about their mother, and then we'll hear from Toby's grandchildren. You can come up here.
One of my mother's biggest joys, simple as it sounds, was being with people. She loved meeting new people, and when she was at a party or other gathering, whatever may have been weighing on her mind vanished as she began conversing with friends, family, and acquaintances. People enjoyed talking to her because she was a very good listener. She was non-judgmental and accepted people for whatever they were. I really never heard her say a mean thing about anyone, gossip, or put anyone down. She taught me that the best conversationalist is one who is curious about others and asks them questions about themselves rather than talking about themselves. She peppered people with questions about themselves, their schoolwork, their families, their jobs. When my mother and I took 2 vacations together in the mid-1980s when my father passed away, one to Mexico and one to Barbados, she was truly a fun companion, and she enjoyed everyone she encountered, from the hotel staff to the fellow travelers we met along the way. All of my friends over the years commented on how much they enjoyed talking to her and how welcoming she was to them. Her love of people was reflected in the jobs she held, all of which were involved in interfacing with people. As a receptionist at the JCC, she loved chatting and helping people navigate the building. As a coordinator for the Office on Aging, she loved working with the volunteers and especially enjoyed planning the party at the end of the year, which honored them for their service to seniors. Being such a people person, she knew what each and every one of her 11 grandchildren were doing at each stage of their lives. Even at the age of 95, when her overall memory was fading, she knew exactly what our 3 children were doing. She knew that Charlotte, our daughter, was majoring in music business, and that the 2 best cities to work in were New York and LA, and she exhorted Charlotte to move to New York when she graduated, knowing that LA was so far away and always had so many natural disasters. She remembered during our last visit home, and this was not at my behest, that Charlotte was debating which city to go to. She also remembered on the last visit that our son Graham was working at the local lumber yard, and she was so thrilled when she learned that he was returning to school this year. She never ceased asking our oldest son Simon how he enjoyed DC and what it was like working on the Hill. She truly was an inspiration to all of us in how to connect with people and how to learn from them, and we will miss her dearly.
Mom always emphasized the importance of learning, education, and quality family time. Whether it was on our Sunday family outings to museums, festivals, or parks, or listening to Broadway musicals on the Hi-Fi, we managed to get a well-rounded education, which later in life allowed me to be able to talk to a variety of people at any given cocktail party. And every summer, the family would pile into the station wagon for a much anticipated road trip to such places as Washington, D.C., to learn about our government, or to Expo 67 in Montreal to learn about technology, architecture, and the world, or to Niagara Falls to see the seventh wonder of the world, and finally to Newport, Rhode Island to see our first American synagogue. Religion, politics, science, and nature, we four kids were really exposed to it all. And I always thought Mom had the biggest vocabulary of anybody I ever knew. Even in her later, when she was towards the end, I was trying to come up with ways to entertain her and ask her vocabulary words. And she was always much better than me. I think I took this all for granted when I was young, but once I had children, I realized how important these experiences truly are, and I tried to pass them on to my children. I thank you, Mom, for teaching me to be curious and value learning, and thanks for always teaching us to pursue our interests. That was a true lifelong gift, and we will miss you, Mom.
There must be a reason. Our mom was the original progressive, at least in my eyes, and did her best to teach us these ethics. No matter what circumstances were, she would always look at the situation from the other person's point of view and say to me, there must be a reason. Said another way, she always took the point of view of the underdog. If a person was caught stealing, she would say, they probably didn't have enough food to feed their family. There must be a reason they stole. If a couple were divorcing, regardless of any of the rumors of infidelity or other causes, she would say, you never know what goes on behind closed doors. There must be a good reason of why they are divorcing. If a person were walking down the street screaming at everyone in sight, she would say, we should feel sorry for them, as it's possible that they were just forced out of a group home or some institution, and now they're lonely and on the streets. There must be a reason. Her guiding light to our family was to be humble, to ask questions of others, try to understand the other person's point of view. There is always someone less fortunate than you, and to treat everyone you encounter with respect, because you never know if, when, or whether you'll be in their situation to be judged. As the sages said, but for the grace of God go I. There must be a reason. We'll miss your life's lessons, Mom. We love you.
In 1948, my mother graduated from OSU with a degree in psychology. I never really considered just how challenging that must have been for her. Neither of her parents had a high school education. Her mother had only finished 8th grade, and her father had just gone to trade school. But somehow on her own, she figured out how to apply to college, and then how to get a scholarship, and then how to get herself down to Columbus with all her belongings, then how to earn money while she was going to school to pay for room and board, and then she even graduated early to save money. So I got to wondering, because I always go down these Googling rabbit holes, like what percentage of women back in 1948 went to college? I was surprised to see it was only about 5%, so my mom was really ahead of her time. But her quest for knowledge did not stop at college. When I was in 7th grade, my mom decided to go back to school again, this time to get a degree in occupational therapy. I remember when my friends would come over after school in middle school, and my mom would not be home, and they'd say, "Hey, where's your mom?" And I'd say, well, I was a little embarrassed because nobody's mom was going back to school. So I'd say, well, she's at the salon getting her hair done. Because that's what other moms were doing back in 1975. And even in her later years, as her eyesight was failing, she still had a quest for knowledge. During the COVID lockdown, when there wasn't much for her to do, we set up an Amazon show for her, and she learned how to ask Alexa all sorts of questions at age 94. Alexa, how many prunes should you eat in one day? Alexa, what is Merck stock today? Alexa, what is the best shampoo for itchy scalp? And as I think about us, her 4 kids, and even all her grandkids, we all seem to have this one trait in common, which I believe she passed on to us. We all have an insatiable, slightly annoying, never-ending quest for knowledge and information. And Mom, I miss you, and I love you. Thank you for everything.
Thank you all for your Thank you for your beautiful words. We're going to hear from the grandchildren now. Any of you who are coming up.
Grandma Toby lived a full 95 years. The thing I loved and admired most about her was her intellectual curiosity, which never waned even as she grew older. She went to college at a time when women's education was not yet fully valued, and encouraged all her children and grandchildren to pursue their own academic and personal interests. I know that I inherited her love of learning, and it is something that bonded us together. She was always interested in whatever I was pursuing, in my studies, my art world career, or my various minor business pursuits. I love how our conversations were never surface level. She always wanted to dig deeper and learn more. She loved to read and stay current on the arts, the financial world, current events, as well as health and wellness, which not so coincidentally are also at the top of my list. Occasionally, she would clip newspaper articles on art exhibits and send them to me in New York. That mail always brought a smile to my face because I knew I was toward the front of her mind. I think her true legacy is the values that she has instilled in her children and their children. She valued family above all else, and you can see that in the 3 generations that have followed her. This large family that she helped build is a true testament to her success as a mother and grandmother. I don't think anyone could find 4 families as loving, respectful, close-knit, and supportive as her children's families, and it is clear to see where the origin is. I know I can speak for all of Grandma Toby's grandchildren when I say we always felt loved and supported by her. She never judged our life's journeys and always found the highlights to celebrate. Grandma Toby, you will be missed, but will live on in all of us.
Grandma Toby, you were an incredible grandmother to us. Shayna, Benji, and I were lucky enough to have seen you on an almost weekly basis growing up in Cleveland. We cherish our time spent together, and we wanted to take just a few moments to share a few special memories of you we have with everyone here. For those of you who didn't know my grandma well, like everyone's saying, she was thoughtful, resourceful, intelligent, witty, quirky, and last but not least, incredibly hygienic. Regardless of where she went, upon arrival, she would immediately excuse herself to go wash her hands without fail. Now, we often went to her house for Shabbat dinner, and my grandma had some really wonderful dishes that she served. She made a phenomenal barbecue brisket, the most moist, scientifically made turkey on Thanksgiving, and many, many other wonderful dishes. However, when it came to eating her fruit salad, we got a really unique taste that we couldn't quite place. So one evening, after many, many dinners at Grandma's house, the kids offered to help her prepare her fruit salad. And what did we witness? There was Grandma Toby with a huge bottle of Dawn soap, carefully washing and scrubbing the rinds of the cantaloupe and the honeydew until they were so squeaky clean. They sparkled. And just like that, the mystery of the odd-tasting fruit was solved. Grandma Toby was incredibly resourceful, and her experience living through the Great Depression taught her not to waste. In her later years, when it got harder for her to leave the house to go shopping, we discovered her more creative side. Grandma Toby always remembered our birthdays and would send us a birthday card each year. When she wasn't able to go out and get a card, she would look through other cards she might have and make them work for that specific occasion. So, we would get a thank you for having a birthday, or we would get a my sympathies, you're another year older, card in the mail. We would chuckle each time we received one of these crafty cards. Grandma, thank you for these cards, and most importantly, thank you for always caring and sharing your love with us. Our grandma took such pride in our accomplishments and would often call to check up on us and cheer us on, whether it was before interviews, tests, athletic meets, you name it. She was always there with a kind word or voicemail. We all smile when we think of her special voice messages. She would take this opportunity to give us advice, tell us about her day, maybe what she had for dinner, and without fail, at the end of every message we would hear, "Oh, and just in case you didn't know, this is Grandma Toby calling." Grandma Toby, we could go on and on and on about the wonderful memories we've shared together. But for now, I will simply say how very, very lucky we were to have had you in our lives for all of these years. We cannot express how much you will be missed, and we love you so very much.
This is for the Rockies. Max, Sam, and I would like to share. Max, Sam, and I would like to share our love and gratitude for Grandma and the 2 decades that we shared with her. I can remember the 3 of us coming to Beechwood, running around the backyard with Toby and Dave, having a good time, enjoying high holidays with everyone, lots of great recipes. I can remember Grandma coming to Ann Arbor to visit us because she valued spending time with family, coming to art fair, going to Gallup Park, and just enjoying nature and enjoying the time together, and as well as all the many family reunions that we went to, and I know how much she enjoyed seeing all of her grandkids. In Grandma's later years, health and wellness was one thing that we really connected on. Grandma was always sharing with me a new home remedy that she found out from a nutrition magazine or from the internet, and she always wanted to hear what vegan or vegan recipes, as she would call them, I was making. What's the secret to your eggless challah? It was kind of a crazy thought. And Grandma also instilled the importance of family and connection in myself and Max and Sam, as I'm sure she has in everyone else here. Her phone calls and her later years were some of my most cherished moments with her. She was always inquisitive and always wished that I would move to Cleveland, as I'm sure she had with all of you. From the Broadkey Bros, Grandma was truly loved, and we wish her a peaceful rest. Thank you.
Good morning. always felt like me and my siblings had a very special connection to Grandma Toby. Wherever we were, whether it be at a family gathering or back at her house, I personally would act as her guide. I would help her walk around, even when I was very little. I would help her walk around and just get her where she needed to go. This was very special to me because she always acted as my guide. So it felt nice to kind of give back. One way she supported me, guided me, was when I told her I wanted to take a break from school. Not only was she very supportive, but she told me that I could be and do whatever I wanted with my life. This was classic Grandma Toby, helpful, respectful, and 100% supportive. I would call Grandma Toby with my siblings, and we would talk about what was happening with our lives at the time. Whenever I would talk with her, the first thing she would say is, "Hi, Graham, read any good books lately?" Her love of reading was passed on to me at a young age, so we would always talk about what books we were reading at the time. That's what I will remember most about Grandma Toby, the fact that she was the nicest and kindest person I've ever met. Thank you, Grandma Toby. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you all for your beautiful, heartfelt words. Really love. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, and from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see victory lies not at some high place along the way, but having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage to life everlasting. Amen. If you're able, please rise now for El Malay Rachamim. El Malay Rachamim, Shochem Bamromim, Hamsei Menocha Nechona Tachat Chanfei Hashchina, Im Kitoshim Atohorim, Kazora Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat, Tova Bat Shmuel Vachana, Shalacha La'olama, Baal HaRachamim Yasirechu Beseter Kenafav La'olamim, Vayitzor Bitzor HaChayim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'tenuach B'Shalom Amishkabah Minomar. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our beloved Thelma Toby Oif Golger, known in our tradition as Tova Bat, daughter of Shmuel Vachana, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace, and let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to pause for a moment as we lower the coffin. Lower the coffin, and we'll be able to place some earth on it. Early or late, all must answer the summons to return to the source of being. We lose our hold on life when our time has come. As the deeds of the righteous enrich us all, the fallen leaf enriches the soil beneath. The dust returns to the earth, but the spirit lives on with God. Like the stars by day, our beloved dead are not seen by mortal eyes, but they shine on forever theirs is eternal peace. That be thankful for the companionship continues in our hearts, in our minds, and with God. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. Vault lid, and then we'll join in college. earth in the coffin's last act of devotion we can show to Toby. And the first hands that cover the grave should be hands of loving families. Kids and grandkids, you can come forward. We're going to cover the grave, then we'll join in Kaddish.
Come to either side of the earth pile.
You return the shovel to the dirt. When you're done, you return it to the pile instead of handing it to someone, as we don't pass along sorrow. So you take some dirt and then you place the shovel back in the dirt. To come back under the tent, we're going to join in Kaddish soon after everyone gets a chance to recover. v'yedachol Beit Yisrael. Magalau bizman kari v'yimru amen. V'yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam ulamei amaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit ha'ar v'yit roman v'yit naseh. V'yit hadar v'yit alel v'yit halal. Shemei dekudasha b'richu. Le'la mikol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran b'yoma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba mikshemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom rumal. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. Let us all say amen. Lech ki shalach Adonai. Go your way, for God has called you. Lech v'nai yamach. Go your way, and may God be with you. V'halach lefanecha tzidkecha kavod Adonai yaspecha. May your righteous go before you. May the memory of your life ever be present in the hearts and minds of all those who have known you and loved you. And may the glory of God receive you. Concludes our service. The entire Oif family will be receiving visitors at Ken and Marilyn's home, 25330 Letchworth Road in Beechwood from 2 to 5 p.m. this afternoon.
At this time, I'm going to ask everyone except the immediate mourners to step out this way and create an aisle facing one another, leading toward the road, please. The aisle is called Ipura, the Aisle of Consolation. Some people to my right, some people to my left, facing one another. And when the family is ready, we're going to come forward. Immediate mourners, grandchildren, in-laws, all other family members. We're going to walk together between family and friends. And you'll just kind of walk when you're ready to pass through and back toward the road. And we ask that the aisle kind of close in. At this time, services are concluded.